Hey everybody, going to be doing the updated guild raid boss guide in this video. So I want to talk about a few little optimizations and changes we've made. First off, this should be the team that you're running. Red Merlin is 100 times better uh, than Gustav. So if you have Red Merlin, use her over Gustav and 75 her as well. Like she could basically go point for point defense and resistance with Gother, so she takes almost no damage at all. The Arthur sub, even though her base resistance isn't 60, it's like 26 something. But she gets another 24.6 from the Fate partnership with Arthur, so she's like 50 resistance. So you can resistance stack on her as well, and she'll be taking no damage at all. But that's the first two. I did decide to 6-star Helbram, and I can confirm that even with my 5,000 attack while running Merlin instead of Gustav, because of the lack of the Pierce to resistance effect that he applies with his passive, um, that doesn't give you a lot of damage to Jericho's ultimate because it's like a small flat number. So it kind of applies a bit to every single hit that you do normally, but it does like which makes it a pain in the ass to keep the boss alive early. But it does like nothing at all for the boss later with like Jericho's ultimate. It's out of 3 million damage, it's nothing. It is absolutely nothing. So he's really just kind of hurting the team by trying to keep the normal boss alive in the early stages. So if you have Red Merlin, this is the updated. Use her every single time if you have her. If you don't, Green Gus is it's still fine. It's just a little bit more annoying to deal with him because he actually is at a risk of dying every now and then if he gets focused enough or crit with an ultimate while he's debuffed or something like that. He's at a small death risk. But Merlin is like queen of this raid for sure. Um, yeah, Hellbrom, like I said, uh, the main thing for him on turn one, you want to be able to cast his poison skill without debuffing the boss. So you can, if you draw more red Jericho cards, you can keep throwing them at him, and it won't kill him by doing triple damage. Even with the 6-star, 5k, I'm using a 6/6 Hauser as a sub because he's really beefy for defense. Um, Even with this, he will not do damage to the boss on turn one, which I will demonstrate when I do the run. But other than that, nothing's changed. Try and get 5 stacks with Gother. You want to have him full resistance build. We will go into gear in the second video and optimizations there. Um, I'm just using the King right now. It would be better probably to not use King. It's definitely better to use him for hard, so I'm just dealing with it. But using a hero other than King would be ideal, so his ultimate is slightly weaker for your normal run, like Hauser, for example. If you have him 6/6 at least. Don't use any units that aren't 6/6. All my characters that I'm using right here are all 6/6. You generally will have to use like a king though to get the 5 ult reduction, orb reduction in hard mode. 3 orb reduction, while still very doable, is a giant pain in the ass by comparison. The 5 orb reduction gives you for sure 100% 2 more turns before he ults, which is very important for having that God RNG run and then getting to turn 6. Um, but this is the team. Same thing applies. Gother does not take damage. You need to make sure it doesn't take damage. If you're using resistance food, that's kind of like a not so amazing thing to do. We should all be running attack food at this point in time, and just hope that Gother doesn't get hit by a silver card or the ultimate. That is the ideal run, because you'll get the highest score with the attack or crit damage food. We'll do what food to use in the next video as well. But Gother doesn't take any damage. He gets 4 or 5 stacks of ultimate. 4 stacks if you have less than 3 million damage shit that you're doing, or 5 stacks if you're doing more than 3 million damage. But finishing on turn 4, I do it all the time. I did it this week on both my runs. Or sorry, turn 5, 4-stack Gother. Um, there will be situations that we will get into once I start the fight that will maybe change what makes it more ideal to do things at a certain turn. But 5-stack Gother, gold buff, gold ice, gold buff, and then Jericho ulti. 6/6 Jericho ulti, 6/6 75 blue Gila, unless you're lucky enough like Neliel to have a 6/6 SSR Gila, because you get like 300 or 400 more attack out of that, or some crazy amount. Maybe not 300 or 400 more, but a significant amount. And other than that, let's go into a run. I don't think there's anything that is not perfectly obvious to everybody at this point in time. So I really just kind of want to talk about an ideal run. The team explanation is pretty self-explanatory. The card draw, and I do want to demonstrate. Let's eat a food here. I'm using crit damage food right now. If I can find it. There's some. Nope, it's a fade food. There we go. And this is how your runs go. So one of the things that's going to be optimizing your score is the amount of buffs that you're able to draw into. So with amazing RNG, like in an amazing RNG run, when you're not taking damage from Gother, the thing that is going to help your score the most is drawing extra Helbram and extra Gother buffs. So you can cast Gother's gold card multiple times throughout the run, or Helbram's buff as well. Helbram's buff obviously a lot less optimal to cast multiple times than Gother's buff because it only gives you 8 points, whereas Gother's gives you 6 points per character. So it's just way different. So I start every single run like this. Cast, 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 cast. I keep the bleed card for Jericho because I don't want to debuff the boss in case I draw more red cards. And you can see even with the 5k attack, without that pierce resistance passive from Gustav, he's still not hurting the boss, which is important because the boss is now not debuffed at all. So what I'm going to do here, just so I can avoid, I want to build Jericho stacks. So it would normally be ideal to cast both of these cards and let the boss get debuffed. And that is exactly what I'm going to do here because I want to build more crit stacks. If you are kind of paranoid about only drawing red cards from here, you could have just perfectly well combined those cards instead, then cast two, and then maybe move the ice or the buff to the edge. But generally, you want to have the Gother buff rank up on the far end. That is normally the best thing to do. All right, we drew another buff. Always try and get your ice and your Helbram buff to rank 2 while you're running. Man, it looks like Jericho's going to get focused and die this run, which should be really funny. But always attack disable here unless the boss is really low on HP, and just keep trying to get this Gother thing up, and then Gother hopefully just never gets attacked. We're on turn 3 right now. You could always check the current turn by clicking this arrow over here. And the main thing is just to maximize the amount of buffs that you cast. And like here, like I'm going to cast this level 1 buff twice because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to cast the poison skill. I'm going to cast Jericho's poison. I'm going to keep the ult around just in case I draw more or do too much damage. So getting an extra 8 points there. Cast that. This should bring him under the shield. Yeah, so my next Jericho card, I'm definitely going to have to move to get the ulti. And we are in the position exactly the position I wanted to demonstrate. In this position, you never ever use the rank up to get the 2-star ice. You always use the rank up to get the 3-star gold buff. Always, always, always. So what are we at? We are at turn 5. So ideally, next turn will be when I would kill, which is going to be a no-go on this run because we are kind of screwed. So that, and I wonder if I can get away with Jericho attacking while he has all the resistance. I will just reset if it does and show a reset and entering and maybe explain some of that stuff in this video too. Yeah, he's going to die for sure. All right, yeah. So Merlin too strong. Yeah, so that is no good. Don't do that. Hopefully this is still capturing the right window. Yeah, it is. So don't do that. I'm just going to move the Jericho card. But the problem I'm going to have next turn is because I also got Gother's ultimate. I'm taking another card away from myself, and it's unlikely that I'll be able to draw another rank up. But the reason you want to rank up the silver into a gold instead of ranking up the bronze into a silver is because I still need either one ice card or one Gother rank up to do everything. And that's basically the only reason. In this position, I actually have a different problem. I have a different problem in this position. In this position, I actually require a single Gother rank up no matter what. I can't use a single ice rank up because next turn is going to be turn 6, and that's the cutoff for the amount of turns that you can take to make this optimal because you take too much point loss for killing on turn 7. So what I have to do this turn, regardless of what would be normally ideal is I have to rank Gother up to gold. I have to cast Gother, his gold right now, and then I have to draw another rank up. And next turn I go rank up ice, gold buff. Um, oh, I could do actually I could do this turn. I can do that this turn. But he's got 3 silver cards, and he's probably going to hit Gother anyway. To be honest, this is a like it's obvious that well, I'm recording, I'm not going to hit the perfect run, but we do know that he survives with this and this, so we will rank up Gother and then go for the gold Gother. Now, one thing you can do if you actually I can't go for the gold Gother. I have to get Jericho's ultimate. Wait, there we go. One and then gold Gother. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. Now, if I had Jericho's ult this turn, what I could do is use the sprinkle, the attack, and I couldn't use her attack because it's too strong. But I could check for a crit roll this turn, and then um, hope that I get a what's the word I'm talking like a really good damage roll here, and then I would only cast buffs until the start of the next turn. Because you could always check the turn before whether or not you're going to have an amazing roll. Yeah, we didn't draw a rank up, so this one's over. I'll just demonstrate what I mean with the re-rolling of damage and crit rates. Oh look, Gother didn't even get hit. So if I drew a rank up, it would have been amazing. So in this position, I need the gold buff, I need the ice, and I need a Jericho ultimate, which means I can use this skill if the boss had enough HP, which he likely doesn't. I can use this skill, or this skill, or one of the ultimates if the boss had enough HP to resist it. These both hit one time. This hits, well, to be honest, I'm not 100% positive on whether or not a patience has a crit roll, but I'm like 99.9% sure that it does. So this attacks like 3 times, attacks 3 times, attacks 6 times. These attack 1 time each. So what I would do to re-roll my crits is I would use one of these skills or this one, and then freeze and then ultimate, and then look at whether or not they were crits. And I would keep resetting by closing out the game and rejoining. And if any of them were crits, I would take whatever ones were crits and I would look at whichever one hit the hardest, the absolute hardest hit. And the hardest hit is the one that I would take for my run to end so I get the most score. Because every time you do an attack, there is not just a roll check for crit, but there's also a roll check for the randomizer of the amount of damage that you do. So if you're able to check, like this is why ideally, normally I'd have this buff cast last turn, and I would just have to gold freeze Jericho ult this turn, and then blank out the 2 cards. Because instead of blanking out those 2 cards, what I could normally do is, well, in a perfect run, cast 2 more buffs, and then freeze, and then Jericho ult to maximize my score. But also, if I was not satisfied with my roll, if I didn't know that Ice Jericho Ultimate was the ultimate damage that I could do this run, then I would cast some of these skills and try to get a higher score. So what we're going to do is I'm going to block out this square, and even though it's a silver ice, I'll just take the low damage and we'll take a look at the number. And then what we'll do after that, if it's a crit, we're going to close out the game. We're going to cast this Helbram card, and then the buff, and then the ice, and then or probably the buff first, just to make sure in case he doesn't do no damage. Maybe we can test both right now. But we'll block this out and we'll look at how much I hit with a silver ice, and that's fine. And we're going to close out, rejoin, come in again. We're going to use this poison skill from Helbram instead, and then get a different roll, check the crit, and see how much damage that does. All right, so run number 1. And the winner is hopefully over 2 million. All right, 1,938,000. So we got 1938, so just keep a little mental note of that. Write it down in a notepad if you want. Whatever you do to make yourself remember your damage rolls. And now we're going to cast the poison skill, which is going to give us a new randomized hit and a new randomized crit. So hopefully they're both crit rolls, no matter which one I do. If one's not a crit roll, then we just reset, we go back and we do the crit roll. I'm not going to reset if it's not a crit, or even if it's a lower one. I'm just demonstrating that it changes the numbers when you do these actions, because the rolls are independent based off every attack card. Heals also have crit check rolls, which means heals can crit. So if you're wondering why King randomly heals way more in PvP sometimes, it's because he crit his heal. There's no crit resistance on a heal roll, so everybody can heal crit. And that's basically where that comes from. It's not like there's probably a damage modifier to that as well, the 95 to 105% roll. But heals being able to crit is important to know for when you run final boss raids in the future, and you're probably going to be using a healer. Like last uh, final boss we had, the final boss king, you could change your role by using Elizabeth heal cards, which was kind of important. All right, so we'll do that, and we had to beat 1.93 as our roll, and I'm not going to reset crit or no reset. I just want to demonstrate that it is different. Oh, no, he got patience, so we'll see if it actually changes it at all. Will it be exactly 1.938 or whatever it was? 451. Okay, so even a patience attack does have a crit check roll. So it would have been a completely different attack no matter what, which is really good to know. Very, very, very good to know. So that is going to be wrapping it up for this video. In next video, I'm going to go into gear optimizations and numbers you want to hit. So hopefully this is helpful and is something a little bit new that you learned in the video, and I don't want to make it too long. So see ya.